My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old, and if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you I was lucky married to a man who adored me, who never let me forget that he found me desirable. But now, I don't even know what we are anymore. Daniel, my husband, has always been an affectionate man. When we first met, it was intoxicating. He'd brush a strand of hair from my face like it was the most important gesture in the world. He'd compliment my laugh, my walk, the way my hands looked holding a wine glass. And yes, he made it clear, from the very beginning, that he was wildly attracted to me. At 27, when we met, I thought that was everything. After dating a string of guys who barely noticed me, who treated intimacy like a chore, Daniel felt like a dream. He looked at me like I was art. He made me feel wanted in a way I'd never experienced before. But as the honeymoon phase faded, his constant fixation on me being sexy started to weigh on me. It wasn't just the little things, though those added up. Like how I couldn't bend over to grab something from a low cabinet without his hand immediately landing on me. How even a simple compliment, "Your hair looks beautiful today," somehow circled back into him whispering what he wanted to do to me later. It was every conversation, every interaction, every touch. At first, I brushed it off. That's just Daniel, I'd tell myself. Some women would kill for this. Better too much than too little, right? But then it began to feel like I was being flattened. Like no matter what else I did, my career, my kindness, my humor, he only saw me in terms of how I looked, how I turned him on. It showed up in subtle ways. I'd be telling him about a hard day at work, hoping for sympathy, and instead of really listening, he'd grin and say something about how stress makes you even hotter. If I got dressed up for a family wedding, he'd tell me I looked sexy enough to scandalize the groom, instead of just saying I looked beautiful. Every moment became filtered through sex. And it wore me down. The breaking point came one Friday night, after dinner with some friends. The night had been nice. We laughed, we talked, we shared appetizers and too many glasses of wine. On the way home, I felt relaxed, happy, and I wanted to share something meaningful with him. So I told him how proud I was of myself that week. I'd given a big presentation at work, something I'd been nervous about for months. I expected him to be curious, to ask me what it was about or how it went. I was excited, glowing with pride, ready to hear him say he was proud of me too. Instead, he smirked. "I bet nobody even listened to the presentation," he said. "They were probably too distracted by how good you look in those skirts." And in that instant, something inside me snapped. I stared at him in the dark glow of the dashboard, his hands gripping the wheel casually, like what he'd said was charming. But to me, it wasn't charming, it was exhausting. "Do you hear yourself?" I said, sharper than I intended. "Every single thing I say, you twist it into something about sex. I'm not just some body for you to fantasize about, Daniel. I'm your wife. I need you to actually see me, not just want me all the time." Silence. The kind that thickens the air. He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just drove, his jaw tight. Finally, after what felt like forever, he muttered, "Fine. If that's how you feel." And that was it. I thought he'd cool off and we'd talk later. I thought maybe the next day, he'd be a little sulky, maybe defensive, but eventually, we'd work through it. After all, we'd had fights before over money, over holidays, over family drama. And we always found our way back. But this was different. Because from that night on, Daniel stopped initiating anything. Completely. At first, I thought he was just giving me space. A week went by, then two. I told myself he was trying to respect my feelings, maybe waiting for me to make the first move. But then it stretched into a month. 2 months. And now, it's been 6. 6 months without him reaching for my hand the way he used to. 6 months without a lingering kiss that meant more than routine. 6 months without a single playful glance, a whispered joke, or a spark of intimacy. It's like he shut off a switch inside himself, locked it up, and threw away the key. And now I lie awake at night wondering, did I ruin us? Or did I just reveal what was always there, that he never really saw me beyond how I looked to him? Either way, I don't recognize my marriage anymore. The first month of silence, I tried to ignore it. I told myself Daniel was just being stubborn, licking his wounds. I'd pushed back against something he thought was a strength, his desire, his attention, and maybe he just needed time to recalibrate. Men don't always know how to handle rejection, right? But by the second month, I couldn't shake the heaviness in the air. It wasn't just the lack of intimacy, it was everything. The way he stopped making small jokes in the morning, the way he stopped humming when he made coffee, the way he sat across from me at dinner like a coworker instead of a husband. Our conversations dwindled into logistics, bills, groceries, scheduling. No softness, no warmth. I tried to break the ice a few times. One night, I reached for his hand on the couch. He let me take it, but his fingers didn't curl back around mine. They just lay there, limp, like I was holding something inanimate. Another time, I leaned in to kiss him. He kissed me back, but it was nothing. A peck. The kind of kiss you'd give an aunt at Christmas. And every time, it left me emptier than before. By month 3, I couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. I told my best friend, Melissa, over wine. She raised her eyebrows, frowning. So let me get this straight. You told him he was sexualizing you too much, and now he's not touching you at all? Exactly, I said, exasperated. 6 months, Mel. 6 months without him even looking at me like a woman. She swirled her glass slowly, considering. Well, what did you expect? I stared at her, confused. What do you mean? You basically told him he was gross for wanting you. Men don't take that lightly. You probably bruised his ego so bad he's terrified of making another move. Terrified. I scoffed. Daniel? He's not terrified. He's punishing me. It's like he's proving a point. See how you like it when I don't want you at all. Melissa winced. Or maybe he feels rejected. And instead of punishing you, he's just shut down. Sometimes men go cold when they're hurt. Her words lodged in my chest, sharp and uncomfortable. Was I the one who started this? Did I ruin everything with one outburst? I didn't want to think about it, so I changed the subject. But the question kept gnawing at me, am I the bad guy? By month 4, my mom noticed something was off. She called one Sunday afternoon, asking why she hadn't seen Daniel around much lately. He's been busy, I lied, but my voice cracked. She wasn't fooled. Claire, is everything all right between you two? I wanted to cry, but I held it in. We're fine, Mom. Her tone softened. Honey, marriage is hard. Men, they need to feel wanted too. If you've been pushing him away, maybe you should try showing him some affection. Meet him halfway. That was it, the gut punch. Because it wasn't just Melissa and my mom. A few others I confided in, friends, cousins, echoed the same sentiment. Maybe you made him feel bad. Maybe you should fix it. It was like everyone was holding up a mirror and telling me the villain was me. And maybe they were right. But every time I tried to fix it, it backfired. One evening, I put on lingerie I hadn't worn in years, something Daniel used to love. I walked into the bedroom, heart racing, feeling both silly and desperate. He looked up from his phone, froze, and then said nothing. Just put the phone down, turned off the lamp, and rolled over. I lay there in the dark, humiliated, my throat tight with tears I refused to let fall. He hadn't rejected the lingerie. He'd rejected me. By month 5, I stopped trying. I buried myself in work, in chores, in meaningless distractions. We became polite roommates, sharing space, but not life. He mowed the lawn. I cooked dinner. He folded laundry. I paid bills. We coexisted. Sometimes I caught myself staring at him when he wasn't looking, his jawline in profile, the curve of his shoulders, the way he absent-mindedly rubbed his wedding ring. He was still the man I married. Still familiar, but also a stranger. And the silence between us grew so thick it became its own presence, heavier than words ever could be. By month 6, I cracked. We were sitting at breakfast, sipping coffee in silence. Finally, I blurted out, "Are you ever going to touch me again?" He looked up slowly, his eyes tired, and for the first time in months, he spoke more than 2 words. "Why would I," he said evenly, "when the last time I did, you told me I disgusted you?" The words sliced through me, cold and sharp. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't silence. This was punishment. He was holding me hostage in the absence of touch. And I didn't know how much longer I could survive it. After that breakfast, I couldn't unhear his words. Why would I? When the last time I did, you told me I disgusted you. I replayed it over and over in my head, twisting it into every angle. Did I really say he disgusted me? No. I told him I wanted him to stop sexualizing me, to see me as more than an object. But in his mind, maybe those words fused into the same thing. Maybe he truly believed I found him repulsive. And here's the thing, once someone believes you don't want them, no amount of explaining can undo it. It's like trying to convince a glass not to shatter after it's already hit the floor. For weeks after, Daniel's silence transformed into something even colder. He wasn't just withholding affection anymore, he was serene, calm, polite. It was worse than anger because it felt final, like he had already accepted a reality where we weren't really together anymore. I'd watch him read on the couch, perfectly at peace, while I sat next to him with a storm raging inside me. I'd slam dishes a little louder than necessary, hoping to provoke some kind of reaction, but he wouldn't even look up. One night, I snapped. I stood in front of him, blocking his view of the book he was holding. Daniel, talk to me. Please. Yell at me, fight with me, do something. I can't take this anymore. He closed the book carefully, set it on the table, and looked at me with unnerving calm. You said you didn't want me to touch you. I listened. Now you're angry because I listened too well. That's not fair, I shot back, my voice trembling. I didn't say never touch me. I said stop making everything about sex. I wanted balance, Daniel. Not this. Not nothing. He tilted his head slightly, like a therapist analyzing a patient. So what you're really saying is you wanted control. You wanted me to touch you on your terms, not mine. The words knocked the air out of me. Was that true? Had I tried to dictate the rules of intimacy? I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. You can't have it both ways, Claire. Either I want you or I don't. You didn't like it when I did. Now you don't like it when I don't. Which is it? My chest burned with frustration. He had turned my pain into a logic puzzle, and I couldn't win no matter which answer I gave. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom, the tiles cold under my legs as I sat on the floor. Because for the first time, I saw what was happening. Daniel had all the power now. By withdrawing completely, he put me in a position where I was begging for scraps of affection, where I was the one chasing him. And he seemed perfectly fine letting me chase. The next morning, I tried a new approach. I made his favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes, crispy bacon, fresh coffee. I set it all on the table like some kind of peace offering. He sat down, smiled politely, and ate every bite. He even thanked me. But he never touched my hand, never kissed my cheek. And that tiny omission made me feel like the loneliest woman alive. I confided in Melissa again, this time on the verge of breaking down. She sighed heavily. Claire, I hate to say this, but it sounds like he's punishing you. Not consciously maybe, but he's making sure you suffer for what you said. Her words made my stomach twist because they echoed the fear I'd been burying. Was this still about hurt feelings, or was it about control? By month 7, I started noticing something else. He looked different. He'd started going to the gym again, buying new clothes, even wearing cologne I hadn't smelled in years. He looked good, better than he had in a long time. And it stung that I wasn't the one who inspired that change. Late one evening, I caught a glimpse of his phone screen lighting up with a notification. A woman's name. Nothing suspicious on its own, but combined with everything else, the silence, the distance, the grooming, it made my heart pound in my chest. Was Daniel moving on without me, right under my nose? That notification on Daniel's phone haunted me. It was just a name, nothing more, no photo, no message preview. But in the emptiness of our marriage, that tiny flicker of light felt like a flare in the dark. Who is she? A coworker? A gym buddy? Someone new entirely? For days, I wrestled with myself. I told myself not to snoop, that I wasn't the kind of wife who checked her husband's phone. But then again, I wasn't the kind of wife who went 6 months without being touched either. One night, when he left his phone on the counter to take a shower, I caved. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, same code he'd had for years. I scrolled through his messages, searching for her name. And there it was. Nothing overt. Just friendly banter. Memes. A couple of late-night "you up?" texts. No clear evidence of an affair, but enough to make my stomach drop. Enough to confirm what I already feared. Daniel was giving pieces of himself to someone else, pieces he had once reserved for me. When he came out of the shower, towel slung low around his waist, I was still holding his phone. My face must have given me away, because his expression hardened instantly. "You went through my phone," he said flatly. Not a question, an accusation. I set it down, my hands shaking. "Who is she, Daniel?" He didn't answer right away. He just walked past me, pulled on sweatpants, and sat down on the bed. Finally, he looked at me with that same unnerving calm. "She's someone who actually likes the way I look at her." The words landed like a punch to the chest. "So that's it?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "You shut me out for 6 months just to, what? Groom yourself for someone else." He shook his head slowly. "No, Claire. I shut you out because you made it clear you don't want me. Do you know what it feels like to hear the person you love say that your desire makes them sick? That the way you express love is wrong." "I never said you made me sick," I snapped. "I said I wanted more than sex. I wanted to feel like a person, not a toy." "And I gave you what you wanted," he countered. "No sex. No desire. Just polite companionship. And now look at you, miserable. You said I sexualized you too much. Now you're furious that I don't sexualize you at all. Which one is it, Claire? Because it seems like you don't even know." Tears stung my eyes, but beneath the pain, something inside me shifted. For months, I'd been swallowing guilt, convincing myself I was the villain. But looking at him now, so calm, so collected, so sure he'd flipped the script, I realized something. This wasn't about him being hurt. This was about control. "You're punishing me," I whispered. He didn't deny it. "You're withholding love until I beg for it. Until I break down and admit I was wrong, so you can feel powerful again." Still nothing. Just that same steady gaze, like a man who had already won. And in that moment, the weight lifted off my chest. Because suddenly, I saw it clearly. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't ungrateful. I was a woman trapped in a marriage where affection had become a weapon. I stood up, my voice steadier than I expected. "If you don't want to be my husband anymore, then say it. Stop playing games. Stop freezing me out. Just say you're done." For the first time in months, his composure cracked. His eyes flickered fear? Anger? I couldn't tell. But he stayed silent. And his silence was all the answer I needed. That night, I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough to leave. I stayed at Melissa's house, curled up on her couch, finally allowing myself to cry the tears I'd been choking back for half a year. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a single text from Daniel. "If you walk away, don't expect me to chase you." I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because for once, I wasn't waiting to be chased. For once, I was choosing myself. Leaving wasn't the hardest part. Staying gone was. For weeks after I walked out of that house, my phone buzzed with Daniel's messages. None of them were apologies. None of them acknowledged the pain of the last 6 months. Instead, they were short, sharp, and transactional. "When are you coming to get the rest of your stuff? Should I cancel the internet bill or leave it in your name? Don't make this harder than it needs to be." It was as if our entire marriage had been boiled down to utilities and property. At first, I responded. Cold, clipped answers, mirroring his tone. But after a while, I stopped. Every time his name lit up my phone, it felt like a leash tugging me back toward the silence I'd escaped. So I blocked him. Melissa was my lifeline. She never said, "I told you so," never scolded me for snooping on his phone. She just poured the wine, let me vent, and reminded me, again and again, that I wasn't crazy. That love wasn't supposed to feel like starvation. My mom was harder. She couldn't understand why I left without working harder to fix it. Her generation believed in pushing through, swallowing pain, keeping the marriage intact at all costs. But when she finally saw me break down, really break down, sobbing in her arms, she softened. "Maybe I didn't get it before," she whispered, smoothing my hair like I was a child again. "But I see now. You deserve more than this." The divorce papers were straightforward. We had no kids, no major joint assets beyond the house. Daniel didn't contest anything. He signed quickly, like he couldn't wait to make it official. And yet, 2 weeks after the papers were finalized, he showed up at Melissa's place. I came home from work to find him leaning against his car, waiting. He looked good, too good. New haircut, fresh clothes, that cologne again. He smiled when he saw me, a smile that once would have melted me. "Claire," he said softly, "we don't have to end like this." For a split second, my heart wavered. Old reflexes kicked in, the urge to go back, to fix, to patch the hole in the life I once knew. But then I remembered the bathroom floor, the months of silence, the text that said, "Don't expect me to chase you." "I'm not interested," I said, my voice steadier than my pounding heart. His smile faltered. He opened his mouth to argue, but then he stopped. For the first time in our entire marriage, he looked uncertain. And then he just nodded, got back in his car, and drove away. That was the last time I saw him. It's been a year since then. I've built a new rhythm, quiet mornings with coffee on my balcony, weekends with friends, solo trips I never thought I'd have the courage to take. For the first time in years, I feel like a whole person again, not a body, not a punishment, just me. Do I miss him? Sometimes. I miss the man he was in the beginning, the one who made me feel like the sun. But I don't miss the silence. I don't miss the way affection turned into a weapon. When people ask why my marriage ended, I don't tell them the full story. I just say, he stopped seeing me. Because that's what it came down to. I once begged Daniel to stop making everything about sex, to see me for who I was. He responded by seeing me as nothing at all. And in the end, I realized I'd rather be alone than invisible.